So I've decided to have a look at the Red Project's K-Jetronic fuel distributor. As is on my desk here, there are two sets of instructions. This one from Precision Machinery and this one from K-Jetronic Specialists. They're actually in Australia. This is in the USA, I believe. I have purchased the rebuild kits from both of these sellers in the past. I will provide links to these PDF manuals. Just be aware that for some strange reason they have decided to disable the printability attribute of this PDF file. And if anyone is in the IT field, you'll know that that takes approximately 3 seconds to bypass, as you can see here. I don't have much hope for this distributor, believe it or not. I'm not sure if you're aware, but if you look at some of my older videos, you would have seen the state of the fuel tank that was in the red car. And this brown Coca-Cola-like substance that's leaking out of this fuel distributor does not fill me with confidence. There is a very fine mesh screen from memory around that barrel. If that's perforated or rusted, this is basically trash. Not completely trash, but I'll use it as a core, and I will get an exchange unit from this guy here over in Queensland, Australia, because there's really no point rebuilding it if it's basically a pile of junk. He would have spare bits and pieces to refurbish it, so I'm sure he won't have any issues whatsoever using this as a core. I have sold him some of my spare units. I probably shouldn't have, because now I don't have any spare parts whatsoever. This is my only M104 980 fuel distributor that I have. So yeah, if this is trash, I have no choice but to just cough up for a refurb unit. In any case, let's get started at disassembling it. The first thing you might notice in these two conflicting instruction manual sets is that not both of them are suggesting to measure the adjustment of this locking nut for the center piston. The Precision Machinery manual mentions that you should measure that. The K-Jet Specialist manual just says to unscrew it and remove it, with no mention of measuring whatsoever. I'm not an expert on this subject matter, so for the sake of my own sanity, I will measure this before disassembling it. It doesn't hurt. It's better to be safe than sorry. And you use a digital caliper like this to measure the depth of this insert here. I'll do that off camera and I'll write down the figures. For anyone interested, I did measure this and it's 0.33 millimeters. On this edge, the same side as that Bosch plate. Now to remove that nut, there is this locking plate that's folded down and up. We just have to straighten those folds out and then we can unscrew that nut. So I'll use my fabulous $3 screwdriver and flatten that out. Looks like my fabulous screwdriver is not going to work. It's actually too fat, so I'll find something thinner. Just to undo these tabs, I'm going to use this precision screwdriver, just because it's nice and fine, to actually get in and there we go. And then I can use a normal screwdriver to continue flattening that. And now that that is flat, I can just use my 19mm ring spanner and loosen that nut. And of course this comes out as well. Without making it go flying. And that is one very gummed up piston. That's almost too disgusting to touch. So the next step is to actually remove that piston. Very carefully. And you do not want to drop that. You're not to polish that or scratch it in any way, because if that is damaged, then this thing is absolutely useless. The next step is to make a note of where this mark is. They call it a kerf. And to make sure when you reassemble this after rebuilding that it goes back exactly as it was. And on this fuel distributor we can see that that's pointing over to that cylinder there. The next step is to unscrew these Torx 27 screws. I've already loosened them off camera, so of course they will not be this easy to remove in real life. Although they admittedly weren't that difficult anyway. It's not like the 3 screws that were holding the fuel distributor down to the airflow meter housing. Those were a nightmare to remove. One in particular stripped the head out, so I'm going to have to find some new screws, and they are quite unusual. There's 2 methods talked about next of splitting the 2 halves. Some people just bang down on these screws, but these people recommend against that because of the aluminium housing. You're likely to damage the threads. They do mention that if you preheat this fuel distributor to 80 degrees and let it cool down naturally, it pretty much splits apart by itself. I might give that a go and we'll see what happens. And here I am back again. That worked extremely well. I used my hot air rework soldering station and basically just heated up the bottom half of the unit. And once that was almost too hot to touch, I just held onto that top or bottom actual half and tapped with a plastic hammer that barrel, and that very effectively split the unit in half. And if you've still got the screws in there, well, it's not going to fall apart and cause damage. So these screws can now come completely out. And we can see just what kind of a disaster the interior of this fuel distributor really is. We might be in luck. Stranger things have happened. Just be aware that there are springs and like ceramic discs, something like that anyway, one for each cylinder that the engine has. There is a chance that they'll fall out when you split this in half. So it actually mentions in the precision manual to actually have it facing in this direction and then just lift the top carefully off. And surprisingly, that's not actually that bad. That diaphragm has certainly seen better days. It's absolutely atrocious, to be honest. I don't know if that's perforated, but I guess we shall see shortly. And as mentioned, there is a ridiculously fine mesh screen on that center barrel. And miraculously, this one is not perforated. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of brown fuel gum, but I should be able to clean that up. So this fuel distributor is not terminal. Wow. Considering how atrocious that fuel tank was, that is very surprising. Now I'm going to take these springs and plastic plates out. I do have 6 of my worst coffee cups set aside with a paper note inside saying in which location they came from, so I will make sure that they all go back exactly where they were. I also have a crude drawing of this section of the fuel distributor with my own numbering scheme, so I will know for sure they go back exactly as they were. And we want to very carefully remove the spring and the plate without disturbing the rest, one at a time. And holy crap, that one is stuck on there. That does not want to come off. Now, just before everything goes flying, I'm going to remove the springs on the others. What the hell? Well, since I've already disturbed it, let's get those springs out as well. And of course, making sure they go in the correct coffee cups. These really don't want to come off. I never had this problem the last time I rebuilt my fuel distributor on my blue-black car. It's like these are glued in place. So maybe this fuel distributor isn't as good as I thought it was. But I guess as long as I can, holy crap, get that off without breaking it, which I got it off successfully, we should be fine. That, I guess, is just a result of that Coca-Cola-like disgusting old fuel. This stuff is going to require serious cleaning. So far I'm not seeing any holes in this diaphragm, so astonishingly it probably still worked. And there we have one extremely manky K-Jet fuel distributor diaphragm. And astonishingly, it has no holes in it, but it's seriously deformed. Here's another problem. This barrel was actually supposed to stay in the other half when it was separated. And it's like glued itself into the top half. So I'm going to have a bit of a struggle trying to get that out without destroying it. But in any case, I will continue just using my hands and not any tools, so I don't scratch it up. When it ordinarily stays in that bottom half, you can just push it out from the other side. But because of the gummed up state of the fuel in this thing, I believe that's why it's stuck in the top half. So I'm going to have a bit of a battle on my hands trying to get that out. It's not rock solid, but it is moving slightly, so I'll just continue trying to get that out. It does wobble side to side, but I'll continue that off camera. And just working that barrel around, I have managed to get that started to come out. Just rocking it back and forth. And out it comes. It's not actually that bad in there, but yes, it is sticky from the gummed up fuel. And here is my barrel with a perfect screen filter. Admittedly, it is sticky to touch. So this stuff needs serious cleaning. I'm not sure what I'm going to use, because I don't want to destroy that filter or its plastic frame. Maybe acetone, but hopefully it doesn't attack that plastic. I guess I'll try on an inconspicuous area first. Of course, we are not finished with this barrel. We have to remove these O-rings, which are barely even rubber anymore. They're basically just hard plastic. And they call them springs. These devices that the O-rings sit on need to come out as well. They are spring loaded, and you just squeeze those and they pop right out of the holes. You might need to use tweezers for that. Now that those 6 springs are removed, and on mine the slit in the bottom of those springs was pointing down to the filter, so I'll make sure they go back the same way. They were also in that orientation in the instruction manual, so that's probably pretty standard. We then have to disassemble this barrel even further. So that ring comes off, and then these snap rings come off and they exit in the direction that they're on, and obviously this O-ring needs to go as well. So that's the 2 snap rings removed, and also there's a plastic type washer at that end as well. So the snap rings come off as mentioned in the direction that they're sitting in, and that O-ring has been removed as well. And now this extremely fine filter can be removed. So yes, I didn't read this far in the manual. I will be able to clean this now without any fear of destroying that filter, and I'll probably use isopropyl alcohol to clean out this filter if nothing more suitable is mentioned in the manual anyway. But that is ridiculously sticky. It is literally like the Coke residue in the center console of a car that's been abused over the years, that someone has spilt. It's just that disgusting. I really should be wearing gloves, but it's too late now. My hands are already dirty, so I think I'm going to go ahead and clean this because it's just disgusting me even touching it. I can confirm that this little screen filter does clean very well just using acetone. It didn't attack the plastic at all. but this is the green version with a number 4 on it. I don't know if there's other types available, but take that as you will. So that's cleaned up very well. You are supposed to use a ultrasonic bath. I don't have one. I used to have one. I actually blew it up when I had my 6.9. I got carried away cleaning absolutely everything on the car and destroyed it. And I don't want to get into that habit again where I'm obsessed with cleaning everything. So I'm not going to bother buying one. Everything is cleaning up pretty well just with acetone. I have wrapped the barrel and piston with cling film just to prevent them oxidizing, and everything for safekeeping is in Ziploc bags. I've also cleaned everything in those coffee cups one at a time with acetone, and the acetone ended up very brown, so it's definitely worth cleaning this stuff. The next step is to measure these grooved screws. These are what adjust the flow rate to each cylinder. It does specifically mention when I remove those metal caps that I should have used tweezers, because allegedly these can turn just by touch. Now maybe fortunately this thing had so much fuel gum in it, these things are rock solid, they're not moving at all no matter how much I touch them. So there was no adjustment caused by me touching them with my fingers. So you can either measure them from the top surface here, or you can measure them from the bottom surface underneath these screws. They recommend doing it from this side if you've got a suitable flat edge to measure against. I'll see what I've got and then I'll decide how I'm going to measure it. I think for the purposes of this video today, I'm not going to go any further than this. I'm pretty pleased with what I'm seeing so far. It is just fuel gum. Realistically, this fuel distributor would have worked as it was. If the car was regularly driven, it probably wouldn't have even had this much filth inside it anyway. So I'm just going to clean things up and decide from where I'm going to go now. I may not even take out those adjustment screws. I'm thinking of just submerging the bottom and top halves in the acetone and letting all of the filth come out. At least I don't have to worry about meddling with those individual cylinder adjustments. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, I can always just get an exchange unit. I'm not out of pocket much for this rebuild kit. It's only like 60 or 80 Australian dollars. It's even cheaper if you're in the US. I had success doing this with my grey car, so I'm not particularly concerned with this job, and that car runs phenomenally well, particularly after I've enriched the overall air-fuel ratio by playing with the EHA valve. That car has very precise throttle response, no lag whatsoever. So I'm hoping to get the same kind of performance out of this red car after it's assembled. I know I'm going to have to play with the EHA valve regardless, because it's 3.2 litres now instead of 3, so the factory configuration is not going to work regardless. But in any case, I think this video is long enough. I may make another one when I go ahead and reassemble it, but that's not going to be today. I have other things I need to do. So that's the end of this video for now. Thanks for watching.